What's up, guys? This is Sunny here, and thanks for joining my channel. Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it. As you know, it helps me out tremendously. Now, today I just want to talk to you guys about, how to become a data analyst in 2024. And really, you really need to know about 4 or 5 core foundational skill sets, right? So what I mean by that is, number one, you want to learn Excel. If you don't know Excel, learn Excel, because a lot of these companies, you glamorize them, but a lot of them are using Excel for their day-to-day operations, their day-to-day, spreadsheets for analyzing data sets and whatnot. They all dump it in Excel, especially when you have a business user. You're going to have people that are using Excel. They're going to want their data in Excel so it's easily understandable, and you can kind of, paint that picture for them, doing data storytelling. And so that's really crucial to understand, that you need to know Excel. And if you don't even need to know anything fancy, really. I would go ahead and learn, how to dump data sets in, work with formulas, data visualization using, charts and bar charts and bar graphs, and see if you can get some practice using just fake data sets or whatever. And I think that's going to be one of the key concepts for you to learn, and really going to be able to start your core foundational skill set with Excel. And bringing it to the next part, like reporting and all that, you really want to learn the reporting platforms. Definitely, hands down, Power BI or Tableau, one or the other, you're going to want to learn them. And especially within Power BI, a lot of these enterprises, they use Power BI as the de facto standard for their, visualization. Even if you have some type of, data lake or Databricks, whatever you're slicing and dicing and analyzing this data, if it's a medallion architecture or whatever the case is, a lot of these companies are serving that data, right, that they went ahead and transformed or they ingested or whatever. They're serving it into Power BI. And I've seen that because I work with companies, I have worked for companies that have had this very complex architecture, but then the serving is done through Power BI for their business users, such as director level and up, SVPs, CEOs. They're going to want to see some type of Power BI reporting. And that's just hands down. So I would learn Power BI, how to bring in the data sets. You can start with flat files and Excel files and link into those, and then bring those data sets in using Power Query and Power Query M language, and learn how to do the data set, transformations, drop columns, remove null values, clean the data. And then after that, start building measurements off of it and start visualizing the data. And you also want to make sure that you're starting to do some practice with naming conventions, right? Because company A will say, okay, well, we like our table names and our measurement names to be all uppercase, right? Or another company will say, well, we want snake case because that's our standardization. So you really want to stick with one standard, because that's very, very important. Otherwise, there's going to be the Wild West out there, and you're going to have some tables are going to be all caps and some tables are going to be snake case. So whatever standardization or naming convention that you choose, you want to make sure that you follow it down to the T and you're consistent with it. You must make sure that you're consistent with it. And another thing is, once you're developing within Power BI, you want to make sure that everything that you're doing has some type of schema, right? And what I mean by that is that your colors and, just the visuals and your typography or whatever you're using, it's very cookie cutter, because enterprise level, companies, they are looking for cookie cutter stuff. They have a documentation, a working documentation that they follow, that they use. So all other developers or Power BI developers or reporting analytics, BI team, you name it, they follow this same naming conventions. And trust me, guys, I come from a company where that is very, very, very weighed upon, right? So you want to make sure that you follow these naming conventions, and you want to make sure that there are standards. If you get into a company, you want to make sure that you are, looking for those resources, whether they have it in SharePoint or they have it in a portal page. What they will definitely have is their standards for development, and basically, how they go ahead and operate and build dashboards, and all those standardizations, they're set by, their data analysts, their BI team, or whomever, they are definitely set, and I would definitely look into that and follow that. And another thing that I would learn, besides Power BI, is Python. If you guys don't know Python, I would learn it right away, because that is the de facto language. It's turning into the de facto language, right? It's so versatile that you can use it for data analysis, data engineering, building pipelines, especially when you get into like Databricks, right? PySpark is already initialized, so you don't even have to initialize anything. You're just straight writing, Python code within these, notebooks, right? And within Databricks. And that's just one example. I don't want to throw you guys off or anything, but definitely learn Python. Start looking into these Python libraries. Like, you have NumPy, you have Pandas. That's all good for, data transformation, data analysis. You're going to be looking to work with data frames, which is also a concept in PySpark. So definitely pick up Python, because you can, even if you want to transition away from data analysis, or you can pick up front-end development. If you want to be a front-end developer, you can also do that too. You can use Django as a framework, and you can do some front-end stuff. You can do back-end stuff. So Python is a very, very, very powerful language to use, and I would learn it well, and I would definitely develop those core fundamental skill sets. So basic concepts, then go all the way to advanced concepts. Don't worry about too much about syntax or learning the syntax or memorizing the syntax. As a senior data analyst and previously a software engineer, I can tell you right now, I will forget syntax from one language to another. It's just the name of the game, guys. A lot of these YouTubers, what they do is they glamorize the whole process, right? They're just coding, and then you're like, man, these guys know everything, like everything, and I don't know anything. But it's not like that, right? Because we definitely refer to the documentation, but the thing is, though, we know the core fundamentals, right? So if you want to know how to do a for loop or iterate through something, or functions, or how to call, pass parameters to functions, whatever the case is, that core fundamental knowledge we know already, that's baked into us, but we now want to know, hey, how do I do it in Python versus JavaScript versus Java versus whatever other language, right? So definitely learn Python and the core fundamentals, get that just down, and you'll be in way good shape when you're starting to learn other things. Another thing I want to talk to you guys about is data modeling, right? Really get into data modeling. Just learn that. You don't have to go too intricate into it, but definitely learn data modeling, ERDs, entity relationship diagrams, cardinality, how to schemas, right? Talk about data set schemas and how it's different from SQL Server to MySQL. So you definitely want to learn all that stuff for sure. And you also want to learn SQL. SQL is going to be a big thing. I would definitely pick up SQL. You can download SQL Server Express and have a local database set up on your computer where you can just, mess around with it and kind of play around with the SQL syntax and how to, build tables and how to create data sets or views. And also you can, stored procs, which is stored procedures. And you can learn a dynamic, how to build dynamic HTML with your SQL. Even just slicing and dicing data, you can learn how to do SQL. You can do a lot of cool things in SQL. So I would definitely start with, SQL Server, which is T-SQL, which is, it's really, I like SQL Server, the, flavor of SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, better than, MySQL or even Oracle. Don't learn Oracle, not yet. I mean, if you're starting out, don't learn Oracle. Start with SQL Server. I started off on SQL Server, and it was really nice. I had a good time with it. I learned how to do functions and stored procs and views and all kinds of stuff. So I would definitely learn SQL Server with a fake data set that you can import in, and then just start playing around with the data sets. And then also, guys, I would definitely learn project management. When you get into these companies, they're going to start, especially if you're have a smaller branch or vertical or smaller group that you're working with, you're going to start getting projects handed out to you, and you want to set realistic deadlines and timelines with them. I mean, your boss will probably tell you what they're expecting as a timeline, but then you want to use some prioritization skill sets, like some Moscow prioritization, something like that, where you can say must have, should have, could have, will not have, and kind of set those expectations that way. And if you feel like you can get something done within, like example, 3 days, double it up, right? 6 days. It'll be 6 days, because you want to leave yourself some cushion. Something else might pop up and you don't want to get burnt out. So definitely learn these core fundamentals, these core foundational skill sets for being a data analyst. And you can start at a data analyst position, and then you can start building up to being a data engineer, which is what I'm doing, right? So right now I'm a data analyst. I was a software engineer in my previous role. So I have a lot of core foundational skill sets. And what I'm going to do with that now is I'm going to branch off into data engineering, right? Learning Azure Studio, learning, Azure Data Studio, ingesting data, building those pipelines, doing the analytics with Databricks, storing it in, a Parquet file, or, outputting it into a Delta file. So that is what I'm looking to transition into. So I would definitely learn these core fundamental skill sets, and you're going to be, way ahead of the game.